So let's talk about the big Orky Battleforce box set that's built around one enormous walking trash can. Let's take a look at some numbers and talk about how good a purchase the Stompa Boyz box set is. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I thought it would be interesting to take a focused look at the new big Orky box set that's coming out, alongside the Ork Codex reveal and that new Big Mek. Games Workshop revealed this Battleforce box set for the Stompa Boyz, a bunch of Orky units and the first place to get the new model, though clearly dominated by this enormous walking Orky war machine. The Battleforce box set is apparently going to be coming out alongside the 10th edition Orks Codex. We don't know exactly what date that's going to be yet, though my guess would be that the release date will likely be sometime in April. The Codex is billed for spring, and we still have the Tau and Kroot launch box to come yet. Usually the lead time on Games Workshop announcing things to the box sets coming out tends to be somewhere around the 4 to 8 week sort of mark. So given that lead time, I'd guess the reveal will probably be sometime in April. The concept of battle forces isn't a particularly new one in Warhammer 40k, basically lumping a whole bunch of different kits together, and Games Workshop offers it at a slight discount, often with a new model thrown in to get people a bit more interested. That new Big Mek with the fun custom options being one draw to the box. At time of recording, pricing is yet to be determined, but it does seem very likely to be at least somewhat in line with their past launch boxes or the Christmas battle forces, somewhere in these kind of price brackets. Going by their previous offerings, it looks like it's around about £130 to £140, $210 to $230, or around the €170 to €180 mark. In this video, I thought we'd take a look through the kits contained in the box set, talk about their value in terms of models, discount, and points and rules in game, and have a quick talk about whether or not the box set really looks like a good deal versus other things. Seeing as we are getting a couple more fun 40k battle forces, I thought that the April giveaway could be for either the Custodes or the Orks one. 6 channel viewers will get the opportunity to have one of those of their choosing, and I'll talk through the details of the giveaway at the end of the video if you're interested in entering for one. Let's get on to the models though, and leading the box set is the new Big Mek. It does seem that this guy is just going to be the generic Big Mek option for Codex Orks going forward. I guess fighting alongside the ones in Mega Armor and the one with the shock attack gun, but this guy's going to be a standard offering. It's a fairly big chunky model with some really quite interesting war gear, including a shock booster teleporter thing, plus a tractor blaster that you can swap out for a custom mega blaster, and a couple of choices of melee weapon as well. I'm genuinely a little bit unsure as to what they're going to price him. He does feel like he's a fair bit bigger and beefier than your standard character who might be running around, and does get some fun options. Just at a guess, I've estimated around about the €32.50, €42.50, or $55. That's based on the Space Marine Chaplain on Bike kit, maybe feeling at least somewhat equivalent as a generic character who's a bit beefier than your normal one. I think it could honestly be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than that though. I do really quite like the model for this guy. As you'd expect, it's a fairly unholy fusion of Ork and technology. He's made plenty of upgrades to himself, including some cyborg body bits. I do like the choice of big fun weapons. You get the choice by this rather surly mech head or one that's issuing a war cry. And GW did show us a couple of previews of the rules. A tractor blaster that's very inaccurate, though if it hits hard against anything with the fly keyword. And that shock booster will be able to teleport his squad through the warp, re-rolling advances and phasing through enemy models and terrain. Overall does look kind of fun, and I feel like he's a pretty nice addition to the box. Next up, let's take the bull by the horns and talk about that Stompa. If you bought this absolutely towering Orky war machine separately, it's £85, €110 and $140, and does really feel like a model unlike any other in Games Workshop's range in my opinion. Plenty of factions do certainly have their super heavies, though out of any of their plastic offerings it does feel like the Stompa is bigger and bulkier than the rest. It sort of feels next level in terms of size, maybe a little bit more equivalent to things like the Tau Taunar or the Tyrannid's Bio-Titans maybe. It is kind of surprising just how much plastic you get for your money here. Interesting that it costs something like £20 less than an Imperial Knight, given that the Imperial Knights are pretty much dwarfed by this guy. Plus he costs quite a lot more points in game. I think the model's nice enough, a little bit simplistic perhaps. I believe that he came out during the Apocalypse expansion release for Warhammer 40k. He does indeed look like a towering great big effigy of Gork, sporting plenty of big nasty guns, and I do particularly like the details such as the captain calling the shots from his head, and the grot riggers swarming over the guns and carapace of this guy banging things with hammers. I feel like it is kind of cool as a big centerpiece for the collection, though I feel like the sheer size of it might put some people off. It's just operating on a massively different scale to normal games of Warhammer 40k. Rules-wise, the Stompa's kind of been eternally bad in game, perhaps sort of deliberately from Games Workshop. I feel like they never really want these super heavies to be absolutely dominant in armies, and maybe err on the side of caution by making their rules tending to be underwhelming, unless they are supposed to be at the heart of your army like Imperial Knights. The Stompa has been consistently bad for so long it's a bit of a meme though. Unlike most of the rest of the super heavies, the vast majority of his lifespan, he just hasn't been anywhere near strong, let alone actually good. And he's certainly considered overcosted at the moment for 800 points, even if you do get some pretty funny stats for that. He gets a big toughness 14, 30 wounds and a 2+ save. Quite a lot of firepower between his main guns like the Super Gatler, the rockets, and the big cannon, though it all hits on an Orky 5+. His melee is pretty fun as well, with 6 attacks at a big strength 24, AP 5 and damage 10, or the option to sweep. There's not a lot of enemy heavy targets that want to get in the way of the huge chopper that this guy has. As a result, between all this, it does mean that he absolutely dominates the box, both in terms of money invested and the amount of points. And to me, it does mean that the Orc box set kind of boils down to whether or not you want a Stomper in your army. If yes, then this is probably the box for you. If no, and you don't think you get value out of this, it might be one to pass up. Beyond the Mek and the Stomper though, there are a few other units. You get 10 regular Ork Boys, £32.50, €42 or $55 if bought separately. These ones are the newer Ork Boy miniatures, fairly cool chunky models, but also do have the downside of being locked to fighting either with shooters or with slugger and chopper. You can't assemble them all as one sort. I feel like they're rarely going to be a bad include in an Orky box set though. In general, most players will want a solid core of Hordy Orcs at the centre of the army to draw on if they need to. Though admittedly they do have some overlap with the combat patrol here, so there is a good chance that people might already have enough of these for their purposes. We don't know how things will shape up in the codex, but they're pretty strong in game at the moment, particularly jumping out of transports. Otherwise, and sticking with the Mek theme, there's 10 looters or burners, so 2 copies of that kit. After that, 8 of them assemble as either the looters or the burners, and then you get a spanner mech to leave both units. At the moment, I'd say that they're both merely okay for Orcs at the moment. Not really that exciting at their current points cost, but they are really quite cheap. The looters get you some spammed autocannon style shots, and the burners get you a bunch of torrent auto hits. I'd say they're usable enough in a casual environment, though I wouldn't spam them, and they're not really seen in competitive lists. These guys are also fairly old miniatures, like the Stomper. They're scaled to the previous Ork Boys kit, so they won't be looking quite as big or beefy as the newer ones. I still think that they hold up well enough for their purposes though. There are a few fun features, like you can see looted las cannons and a Tau fusion blaster being made use of here. Finally, for the box set contents, we have a truck, £32.50, €42 or $55. I feel like including the generic transport for the faction is really going to be a bad idea in big discount box sets like this. Trucks have definitely been in demand in early 10th edition thanks to being really quite cheap. They were initially 50 points and then they went up twice consecutively, and even now they're still pretty good, maybe a little bit more balanced against things like battle wagons though. Overall seems reasonable enough. I guess you could use it to transport some looters or burner boys around. It's quite a nice transport for delivering things like flash kits or knobs with a war boss though maybe. The miniature itself has some fun features like that wrecking ball. It does take a fair bit of time to paint compared with some factions' transports though, just given how many surfaces it has with its ramshackle construction. Overall, putting that together, you have the new Big Mek, the Stomper, 10 boys, 10 looters or burners, and the truck. If you add that all up, then the total cost of the kits comes to a fair bit, £230, about €300 or $380, which definitely feels like it's on the upper end for the amount of miniatures in terms of value that they put in these boxes. Obviously, it could be a little bit higher or lower depending on the eventual cost of that Big Mek though. Going with a sort of middling price estimate for this thing, if it were £135 or $220, that would yield a discount of around about 42%. That's really quite a good amount from Games Workshop's purposes, approaching half price. The average combat patrols tend to be somewhere in the 20 to 40 mark, so this would certainly be on the upper end if it were this. Overall, for that reason, if you did want these exact kits, then it certainly looks like a pretty great deal on paper. I feel like that if is perhaps a big if though. It's generally going to come down to the Stomper as to whether or not this is actually a good deal. Though it does seem that looking at the numbers, it looks like you could almost equate it to buy the rest of the miniatures and get the Stompa free, which is kind of ludicrous as one of Games Workshop's very biggest plastic miniatures. To look at it from a different angle, points-wise in the box you get 1,140 points, though that is based on an estimate for the Big Mek. Again, the Stompa domination doesn't stop here. It's heavily carried by 800 points of slightly overcosted Stompa. I guess that number would go down a fair bit if Games Workshop actually decided to cost it a bit more in line with its abilities and try and make it genuinely good. Still though, for its on-paper points in the box per dollar, it does mean that this set works out as being pretty great. You get 5.2 points per dollar there, so a fair chunk towards the army. Though bear in mind that if you don't actually wind up using the Stompa regularly in games, you're only getting 340 points worth of Orks in this box, which really isn't that much. Otherwise, comparing it to other greenskin army deals at the moment, I guess it could be tempting for a new player to start the faction to join with the Stompa Boyz plus a copy of the Combat Patrol box set, and to get you slightly more than 1600 points worth of greenskins. Maybe add something like Gazgul as one of the other ways to get cheap points for the money, and you could be pretty rapidly approaching a 2000 point list that you could play, at least far cheaper than buying Games Workshop's kits otherwise, unless you're doing things like kit bashing, converting, or 3D printing. You would get 3 duplicate copies of that same Ork Boy kit though, which might put some people off, though Orky green tired style armies have certainly numbered far higher than that in the past. Compared with the last Battleforce, the Christmas one that just went was the Beast Snagger one. That one was Killrig, Squigosaur Boss, Squighog Boys, a Pain Boss, and the Boys on Foot, and it definitely feels like an Orky box of a very different sort. This one a lot more mech focused, and that one all focused on the new Beast Snagger Savage Orks. I guess there being no overlap there could be seen as a positive if you picked up the last one. I feel like the Beast Snagger one might have been a little bit more popular just for more general purpose collectors though. It's perhaps a bit less all or nothing, all focused around the one Orky Titan. Finally, I thought it would be interesting to see which you guys liked more out of the Custodies Auric Champions or the Orks Stompa Boyz box set, and it honestly looks like the vote is pretty well divided. 54% prefer the Custodies, whereas 46% prefer the Orks, really quite close there. Perhaps the Custodies units might be a little bit more practical for getting an army together, though people just found the idea of having one of 40k's biggest models inside a Battleforce box set just to be kind of funny. I'm sure there'll be at least some Ork players out there who want to embrace the meme of having this entire walking battle fortress be a starting point to a force. Let me know what you think though. Do you think that the Stompa Boyz is a good deal? And who do you think got the better battle force out of Orks or Custodies? Lastly, I thought I'd just cycle back to talking about that giveaway with the Custodies and Orks Battleforce giveaway for April here on the channel. I thought there'd be quite fun boxes for it, given that they're new battle forces for popular factions. For this one, as with a couple of others recently on the channel, it's for 6 winners. This time each of those winners will get to choose either the Custodies Battle Force or the Orks one, and I'll post them out to you when I get my orders in. As per normal with the channel giveaways, there's 2 equal ways to enter, both of them links down in the video description below. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any amount. It is the thing that allows me to keep on making videos like this quite so regularly, and I really do appreciate you guys allowing me to do that. It is great. Channel backers on Patreon get automatically entered into the prize draws each and every month, with similar big things on offer. Otherwise, you can also enter completely for free by supporting the channel on social media. To do that, you do 3 actions: subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page. Then to actually enter the draw, the giveaway post appears on the 1st of the month. If you reply to that with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo, then you get entered. The name and date thing is just to stop Facebook bots and spammers and make sure that it goes to a real hobbyist. Then 24 hours after that goes live, I do the draw with a random number generator, and I'll announce it on the channel update video on YouTube on the 4th of April. As mentioned, we don't know the release date for these box sets yet. I suspect it will likely be sometime in April. The box sets will be posted after I receive them. If supply is somehow very low for some reason, I might need to buy the kits individually, but I'll certainly get you your minis. In any case, feel free to check out the Patreon page linked in the video description, or the Facebook page down there as well. There'll be similar things to this every month on the channel. In any case, look forward to hearing what you think about the Stompa Boyz. Let me know down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to Allspecs Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I've done a similar video focusing on the Auric Champions of the Adeptus Custodies as well. And it will be interesting to take a look at prices for these when we do get them. Finally, as mentioned, if you'd like to help support the channel, then there's the link to the Patreon page down in the video description, as well as entry to the giveaways. You also get a few other things, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and a few other things for bigger backers, such as your name in the credits and a few other bits and bobs. Feel free to check that out if you're interested in that or in the giveaways. There's links down in the video description, and a massive thank you to you guys who are supporting. In any case, thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.